Hey gang, it's Bailey. I brought you to one of Houston's most upscale luxury hotels today to talk to you about how to build a luxury brand out of your magazine. And also, we're going to talk a little bit about what happens when a recession hits an economy and you need to pivot with your magazine to make it sustainable and successful. So let's start with the luxury brand. So at any luxury hotel, right, you're going to have nice sheets, you're going to have a nice bed, your room is going to look really good, there's probably going to be valet parking. But the thing that sets apart most luxury hotels is the service. How good a service do you get when you check in? Do they know your name? Do they remember your name? Will they bring you things without necessarily asking to be tipped every single time? Will they bring you things and expect you to tip every time? These are key elements in what makes a luxury hotel a luxury hotel. You know, when you're building a luxury magazine, right, it's really difficult to get your mind around customer service is king, right? Because you have so many other things that you have to worry about. But that's the thing that will separate your magazine from every other magazine in your city, in your state. Customer service is key. So let's start breaking apart customer service a little bit. How does customer service look when you're at a hotel? You walk in, they say, "Hello, Mr. Jordan. It's good to see you. Thank you for coming today." That's exactly what your customers are wanting from you, right? They want you to remember their name. They want you to remember stories about their dog and their kids and stuff like that. They want to know that there was a personal connection that was formed, because ultimately that's going to be the foundation, the bedrock that you build your magazine on. So if you think about this, let's compare a luxury hotel to a luxury magazine, okay? Think about it like this. At a luxury hotel, you're going to spend a lot of money most of the time for the rooms, right? But you know, in spending that money, you're expecting a certain level of quality, you're expecting a certain level of luxury, you're expecting a certain level of just bonding that you have with the hotel and their staff. You will never expect to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars staying at a luxury hotel and also then getting poor customer service. The beds are a mess, the room's a mess. You would never expect that. You expect the design of the hotel to be very luxurious. You expect the look and the feel of the people that work there to just be top notch. So when we're translating this into the magazine world, with your magazine, first of all, your design. You know, I talk a lot about good design because the good design is so important. In my organization, we spend more time working on the design than any other editorial function in the magazine. The reason being is because anything we put out, we want it to be top of the line and top notch. So first things first, design. You have your design together and it looks perfect, hey, skip this part because you don't even need it. If your design is not together, however, there are certain things you need to do. Number one, look at other magazines that have been around for a long time. You can trace magazine design throughout history. If you look at, let's say, Time magazine or National Geographic even. Look at where they started many years ago to where they are today. You'll begin to see the design patterns evolve throughout time. As the design patterns evolve throughout time, you'll be able to see what's current now, what used to be current, what good design looks like, what bad design looks like. You'll be able to see everything in the snapshot of time, and that's a really important aspect for your magazine. People want to interact with your magazine and feel like it's a luxury brand, even if you aren't a luxury brand. Now, let me clarify that a little bit. Being a luxury brand is dependent upon two factors, right? The customer service and the price. The customer service aspect, like I said, they want to know that when you're selling them an advertisement that you're going to know their dog's name, that you're going to know their kid's name, that you're going to remember their birthday, you're going to remember when they fell off their bike in the 4th grade. That stuff is important, but then the price also matters too. You can't start off at a price point that's going to be so high that you're priced out of the market. If you start a brand new magazine, and let's just say in Houston, because Houston's where I am. So if you're in Houston and you start a brand new magazine and you're charging $5,000 a page, nobody's going to advertise with you. Not because your magazine's not perfect, not because it's not good, not because your customer service isn't good. But remember, if you're going to build a luxury brand, you have to have that price point. How do you get to that price point if nobody will spend the price point with you? Great question, Bailey. No problem. I'm happy to answer that. So the thing that's really important here is to start off by building a base. So you're going to have to find a base of advertisers that want to spend the money with you. Like when you build a luxury hotel, you don't just throw up the hotel and start charging people $5,000 a night. That's not how it works. What you do is If you're a brand, a bigger brand, you find people that have stayed with you in your other hotels, and you say, hey, come stay a night on us at no charge. Or hey, come stay a night on us and we'll give you a discounted rate. That's how they begin to build a following and a loyalty, and that's what you need to do too. So you start off by saying, hey, look, I want to charge you $5,000, but I know that nobody's going to pay that, so I'm going to start off by charging you $1,000. Once you have 15, 20, 25, 30, $1,000 customers, then you can start going to people that you didn't talk to before and say, hey, listen, we have this person in, we have that person in, we have this big name, we have that big name, and then you can say, we normally charge $5,000, but we'll let you in for $3,000. They have no way of knowing that this luxury upscale hotel paid $1,000 and now you're charging them $3,000 because you have contracts that say everything's confidential. And besides, they're not going to go talk to each other anyway. But the thing you have to understand is that if you're going to build a luxury brand, you have to be smart about it. Start with a $1,000 price point and then go up from there to a $5,000 price point. And then you can go even higher than that. There's a guy here in Houston that I know that does a excellent magazine, a very high-end luxury magazine. It's a cultural magazine for the Latino crowd. It's an excellent magazine because he charges $10,000 a page for his magazine. Now, he didn't start off there. You can't start off at $10,000 a page and expect people to pay for it. But the great thing about it is that he started small, began to get people in at that lower price point, and when you get the bigger names in, it attracts other bigger names because they don't want to feel left out. So in his magazine now, he's charging people $10,000 a page, but he has people like Bentley, Mercedes-Benz, very high-end luxury brands that now want to advertise with him. The same thing will happen in your magazine if you just give it a little bit of time and you center yourself around being a luxury magazine. Now, of course, there's two sides to every coin. If you don't want to be a luxury magazine and you just want to be a successful magazine, you don't have to go for the luxury price point. You can start off charging people $300 for a magazine ad, like a regular hotel would. They might charge you $70 a night for the room. The room might be okay, but as time goes on, as graduation comes around or weddings come around, the price might go up a little bit, but it doesn't get to $5,000 a night. You can do the same thing in your magazine. You can start off at $300 per ad, get your base set, and then once you have your base set, you can go up to $1,000 and hang out around $1,000. Perfectly okay to do. People will be happy to advertise with you as long as you have a good product. Now, remind you, the design has to still be good. You can't sacrifice good design just because you don't want to charge more money. If you do that, what's going to happen is you're going to have a competitor show up in your market and say, their design is horrible. I can charge a little bit less money and give people a better design and take this market from this magazine. So I don't want that to happen to you. So please be very careful when you're doing this and just make sure that your design is always good. So let's talk about recession. So there's many financial experts that are saying a recession is coming. What do you do with your magazine if you think a recession is going to affect your magazine? Or what do you do if you don't think your magazine is going to be affected? Well, come to our website and find out for sure. But aside from that, what I want you to do is I want you to think about a few key things. The things that normally affect businesses in a recession are, number one, excess spending of their customers. That's the first thing. Their customers don't want to spend excess money because they don't have excess money to spend. What happens when a recession happens is people that had money to go to the movies, to go out on dates, to go buy fancy cars, to go stay at luxury hotels sometimes, no longer have that extra money available. So what they do is they save it. Because they want to make sure that they don't lose their home, they want to make sure they don't lose their cars, they want to make sure that their kids aren't taken out of school, that they have food to eat, things like that. And so the first thing that gets cut for businesses is advertising. That's the first thing that they cut, hands down, every time a recession happens. Now listen, I've seen this happen time and time again when something happens in a local market where they can't sustain themselves and a magazine goes out of business. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you some techniques that are going to help you stay in business in the event that a recession does happen. Okay? So technique number one. The first thing you need to do is you need to cut your costs dramatically. So a lot of you print in America. Hey, I am all about printing in America. However, the thing I want you to seriously consider is If your magazine is going to die and you are no longer going to be able to sustain your lifestyle, feed your children in some cases, or even just pay for your retirement, I want you to seriously consider printing in a different country. Now, there are some risks with that, and we're going to get into those risks, but the thing I want you to be thinking about is I have to lower my costs. A lot of times printing in America, we're expensive. America has good, fine, quality products, and you know what? You got to pay for those products. However, that doesn't mean you can get a good, fine, quality product in another country, because you can. What I want you to think about is if your magazine falters in your community, you might already be a community staple. So if your magazine falters, what does that say to the rest of the community? Wow, this big magazine that everybody knew and loved just went under. What does that mean for me? You're a pillar of stability in your community, and that's the thing you need to continuously maintain. So, first things first, if you're going to print, consider printing overseas. And most of the time you can drop your costs anywhere from 30 to 60% off what you would pay in America to get it printed. Now that doesn't mean you stay there, but if you need to weather the storm, print overseas for a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, and then bring it back afterwards. Next, the thing you have to think about is, remember, we're cutting our costs. So think about in terms of your design and your editorial content. You're going to have to figure out ways to streamline your editorial content and your graphic design. If right now you're paying your graphic designer, let's say $1,000 to design your magazine, that's not a bad price at all. However, you can't sustain $1,000 if you don't have that much advertising dollars coming in. So what I want you to do is go on websites like freelancer.com, fiverr.com, upwork.com, and find some great graphic designers that can help you design your magazine for a lot less money. Additionally, if you're paying a lot for editorial content, look, I know traditionally in this business, we'll spend a little bit of money paying editors because that's what you're supposed to do, right? Pay people well. However, if you're paying $300 for an article, you can't afford that in a recession. You can't. It's not sustainable. I know how much you might love your team. I know how much you might love your writers. But let's be honest here. If the magazine goes under, everybody loses their job. If the magazine stays alive, some people lose their job. And I hate to just be the bearer of bad news with this, but I got to give you the reality, okay? I've watched this happen time and again because magazines will not cut their costs. It's better for you to cut your costs and stay in business than it is for you to keep your costs the same and go out of business. Word to the wise. Now, that being said, find editorial people that are willing to write your articles, maybe not for $300, but maybe for $25 or $50. Those people will be grateful that you employed them at that rate, and at the same time, you'll still get good quality articles. Now, of course, the next thing you have to do is you gotta lower your pricing. I hate to say this to you, but it's the truth. If you want to be able to stay in business, it's a numbers game at this point. A recession means people are not spending extra money anymore. So if they say, well, times are tough, I gotta make sure that I stay in business, they're gonna cut advertising. Not because they don't like you, not because they don't want to do business with you, they just can't afford to. So if we were charging people $1,000 for an ad, now you need to lower your cost enough so you can charge people $400 for an ad. This is a strategy I've used before. It doesn't always feel good. I'm just going to be honest with you about that. But lowering your cost from $1,000 to $400 keeps people wanting to do business with you, especially if you're bringing them customers. Now, here's the thing about that. If you're going to be bringing them customers through your magazine, the first thing that any business is going to do when they start cutting costs, they're going to look for alternative ways to get their name out about their business because now they need it. Okay? So what that means is now we're in some of your cities, you don't have to worry about this. You're only competing against other magazines. But in a place like Houston, if a recession hit Houston, what I'd have to do is cut the cost of my magazine, let's say from that $1,000 down to the $400, but then I'd also have to ramp up other areas like social media. You know, if you're gonna cut your cost, don't think that's where it ends. And a lot of magazines do this because they will cut the cost. But cutting the cost, lowering your prices is not the end. You also need to up your product offering. So what that means is now if you say, hey, listen, I was just a magazine before, but now I'm an all-inclusive provider. Now I do graphic design because now you need to figure out ways to get more income coming in. You also need to offer social media services. If you can offer social media to your customers, that's going to be huge because most small businesses do not know how to do social media. If you're a magazine and you're already established, they trust you. So use that trust to your advantage. Set up social media services, set up graphic design services, set up editorial and copywriting services. You can do all of these things inside the scope of your magazine. The thing that's going to make you be really successful with this, though, is if you can do it at a price point that they can afford. So let's say our mock recession hits. I take my magazine price from $1,000 down to $400. So it's $400 for an ad. Then I say to my customers, I say, listen, if you will stay with us and keep advertising with us, I'll charge you $700, and we'll do this $700 a month. I'll also include social media management services, and I'll give you 5 graphic designs a month that you can use for whatever you want. So if you want a brochure, if you want a flyer, whatever it is that you want, I got 5 of them for you, and it's $700 a month. Now listen, if you were charging $1,000, that's a big drop. It is. But remember, you've already cut your costs by at least 40%, right? So your costs are lower by 40%. Therefore, you can afford the amount of money, and the margin is still big enough that you can keep your lifestyle exactly the same. If you do the math with me really quick, if you have 10 clients that are $700 a month, that's $7,000 a month that you've made from just 10 clients. Now let's say that you have 30 clients. Well, that's $21,000 a month that you are bringing in. The number will keep compounding like this over time. And the great thing about that is some people are not going to be as affected by the recession. They're just not. A luxury upscale hotel chain, you know what? Some of them are not going to be affected. Some of them are. Now, here's the thing I'm going to tell you about this, is that if you spend your time, energy, and effort preparing for a recession to come, having a plan in place, if a recession never comes, hey, stay exactly where you are. There's no concern. There's no issue. If a recession does come, though, you're prepared. Now, the biggest thing that you can do to make your magazine successful is to always be prepared. All right, gang. I'll see you next time.